Welcome back, everybody. The Paladins Pro Circuit Summer Finals. Aggro now joined by Goremizers. Gore, we're getting ready for the second set of the day. Parallax Gaming up against Celestial Esports. Brazil versus Europe for the second time in a row now. But Parallax in a kind of weird position. Yesterday, missing FRZ God, their star player. They lose 3-0 to Team Project. Now, today, they've got FRZ God back. However, they're losing Mitau. They don't have Mitau today.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most unfortunate scenarios to have to go into because when you think about it, I mean, those are the two, I would argue, biggest names on this roster. You know, Dintic's been around for a little while. Outlander's had a really, really good first phase, but I mean, these guys have competed at the top of the top several times, so it's unfortunate for them to not be there, but it's the question of how hard can one carry versus the other, right? Unfortunately, Team Project, well, first off, they were on something different yesterday, playing a lot better than we've gotten to see out of the first phase. And you have to look at Midtown maybe not having the same carry potential that I would give, like this hidden stat that Freeze God has, right? Freeze God is easily one of the top 5 players in Paladins history. Just period. It's so easy to make that statement because he's just been so consistently good on so many different champions. There's very few players who have been able to maybe exceed him at that level. And so the question really does come down to how hard can Freeze God carry, right? How much can he keep this control? I don't think Celestial are going to make it easy for him, but this is a guy that is used to being in these kind of clutch or kick situations, right? Where it is very much like if you lose here, you lose now. You go home. You don't get anything else out of this, so you have to be careful. You have to be alert. I think he can at least bring it back to make it competitive.
That's what we're hoping for Parallax, for sure. Though I agree with what you said. Project yesterday was just on a different plane than every other team. In Celestial Esports, they struggled a little bit yesterday as well, but did show some bright spots. What have you seen from them so far this weekend?
Honestly, just the 3 people you have to look at is going to be Klosar, Prosper, and Slop. Like, the 3 of them working together, it just makes it so difficult to handle them. I mean, Celestial as a whole are doing, I would argue, something similar to what we see out of maybe Sanguine in North America. Maybe not quite at the same level just yet, but Slopodopolis and Prosper Logic as a damage duo are insane. Toot Toot, as we see in these highlights, is one of the few people who's pulling out Ruckus, but he makes it work so consistently that it's something you have to consider when you go up against this team. Klosar has this really, really great aura around him where maybe it is Slop and Prosper who are picking up most of the kills, but they never would get there if it wasn't for the fact that Klosar is setting them up. And then, of course, you have Xenos for that support player that is literally the machine that keeps everything rolling for them. I think that's kind of the thing that keeps everything going. The fact that they work so well together at the end of the phase and coming into this weekend has just made it look so much better for them than, honestly, where I thought they were going to end up.
Well, you know Celestial really wants to move on because if they do, they'd face the team that knocked them into the lower bracket, which would be District 69. But first, they've got to get through Parallax Gaming, and map number 1 could prove to be difficult in order to get an easy 4-0 because Splitstone Quarry has been very, very competitive so far this weekend. Bizarre Ice Mines bandwidth by Parallax for what it's worth.
And the thing is when it comes down to Splitstone Quarry, this is a map that it's just right on the edge. I mean, a lot of the highlights we saw for, I think, both of these teams ended up being on Splitstone Quarry. It's a place where if you give Freeze God the right blaster, he's going to be very comfortable. It's something Parallax Gaming specifically were able to run very often. But again, you look at Celestial's champion pool, a lot of long-range hit scan that they're going to be very adept with, the Ruckus that can come in and help control the the bleachers, the staircase around the drill, everything like down there. So you have so many flexible options that I feel like both teams benefit from starting here.
Interesting. Well, it should be fun to watch then, as both Victor and Vivian taken off the board by Parallax. We saw how potent that Victor could be in our first set of the day, so that one certainly makes sense to me, as Bomb King and Io, 2 pretty standard bans, especially against FRZ God with that Bomb King, come through by Celestial. So now Parallax have that first pick. You're looking towards Inara, who's looked pretty good, I think, as one of those point tanks. We've seen some teams prioritize Ashe and others prioritize these snipers, and Strix will be the first pick here for Parallax.
And I like this concept, right? Ban out 2 of the things that you know are going to be comfort picks for Celestial, whether it's both targeting Slop, it kind of hits Prosper a little bit. Honestly, it kind of slaps Klosar in there as well. And then you grab well, your preference of sniper. Kinessa's still available, so they're still going to be able to counter it at least a little bit, but the fact that you're going to be comfortable, the stealth that Strix has allows him to get that first shot off in the sniper battle, and whether or not he's going to be looking across the way towards a Kinessa, or if it's a shot that goes towards that Genos or towards a different carry, doesn't really matter. The idea is that he's going to be able to at least start off every fight with a bang.
So now Genos and Inara have been locked in by Celestial, and Parallax could be looking towards the Corvus has been the other big support that we've seen quite a bit of. A little bit of Pip has been thrown in there now and then. We've seen some players start to go towards that, but we don't know if that's exactly where Parallax is going to go. As Leon, a champion that we have not seen a lot of so far this weekend, locked in pretty early here by Parallax.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes to Splitstone Quarry as a map, long-range hit scan. It's hard to argue against at that. I think it maybe doubles down as, again, something Celestial could run and make look really good. Although, like you said, not a lot of teams have been picking her up. And she's not bad. Like, it really does just come down to the fact that sometimes you just want a champion that does it a little bit better. And right now, Victor, Vivian kind of do the whole hit scan long-range thing better than Leon does. But the minute they're out of there, especially for someone like Freeze, who can pilot that Leon no problem, I wouldn't be surprised to see him scoop that one up and run through. When they don't have a blaster that's, going to stand out like the Bomb King, you have to carry on something else.
There shouldn't be any surprise to see Koga locked in for Celestial. If it were any other team, I'd be asking you some questions about it, but Slopadopoulos has really proven to love this selection. And I love this Furia pickup here for Parallax. I've got a soft spot for Furia, one of my favorite supports to play, and just feels like she is a little bit undervalued because of how good that ultimate is, Gormizer. That Inflame is still absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I've been thoroughly surprised with how little we've seen her lately. That was, the reason that Genos has picked up is that Luminary boost is so good, and one of the biggest counters, at least throughout most of Phase 1, was, well, hey, you get that all the time, but we're going to get movement speed and a damage amp every single time Furia gets her ult up. You add a Morale Boost 3 in there, and you're kidding me. Like, it's always going to be available when you need it. And so you add the Eevee into the mix. I am really scared of this Parallax roster. I think this looks really good for Splitstone Quarry. I think Androxus and Koga throw a wrench in their plan, but I don't know if it's going to be consistently good enough to just shut down what they've drafted.
Yeah, it feels like Celestial might be a little bit low in the consistent damage department. Does Genos do enough to boost them up with that Luminary?
Definitely does. Realistically, the consistency for me starts to fall apart more around the Koga, right? The Genos is going to be able to boost him up, and it's going to be enough to make up for the damage or maybe lack thereof. But it's how often can Koga actually get anything done when he goes into the backline, right? If he's not looking for the Eevee, you need Andro to maybe take that 1v1. You're trying to climb walls and chase down Strix and Leon, and trying to take on a 2v1 as Koga isn't always going to end in your way. I think later rounds when he has his ult, he might be able to find that a little more consistently with some of the iframes he has, but otherwise, I feel like they're just going to have a range deficit fighting against them here. Ashe is going to have to pick up a lot of slack to make sure that the rest of them can really close that gap and find that damage they need to.
I mean, the two frontline setup here for Celestial has been pretty popular among a lot of teams. Team Project especially have really liked that double frontliner. Which draft do you think takes home game one here, Gore?
I have to give it over to Parallax. I think with the Furia, it just sends it over the tipping edge. Strix Leon can sit back and be comfortable. They can control Bleachers with the Barrack as well. And Eevee, unless Andro is just absolutely shutting her down, is going to have the time of her life on this map. It's one of her best. So I'm leaning over towards Brazil.
We'll see if Brazil can find their first win of the entire weekend. No Brazilian team has won a map quite yet. We'll see if Parallax can change that with game number one.
Thank you, guys. Good call on the desk. It's me, Fawn the Legend, of course, with my main man, Kresnik, and we'll be covering Splitstone Quarry in this very, very first game of this set, which is Parallax versus Celestial Esports. In case you guys weren't paying attention for the past few minutes that those boys have been on the desk talking about it. So I'm curious to see, do you agree with Gore, Kresnik, in the sense that Parallax have the better draft here?
I think on paper, yes, but Celestial have a chance to make it work if that Koga plays hardcore on the inside. This Barrack will struggle against that Koga with all the headshots. Potentially, you can see him already getting shredded, and they're just going to get walked at from the open side. It's going to be tough. Already getting pushed down under, and Dintic kind of on an island with his Furia here.
Yeah, but Prosper Logic already taking out 2 of them. That poses more of a threat than really anything else. As you see, Furious already getting melted. Slapodopoulos in the back line as Prosper decides to follow up. Ash is there too, Toot, making sure that he provides the space needed for these 2 boys to go crazy. And it seems like that's already the plan. Don't really need a game plan if everyone's sort of just getting shot one after the next. Prosper with another double in the short time that they were actually able to capture that point, and Barrett goes down once again. Toot, that's the first break in all red. Blue, Kronz is going to be the one that takes this kill against the Ash.
Super aggressive start from Celestial, and that's kind of how they have to play it against that double backline. If they get forward in Quarry, then there's no angles that Parallax can safely take without having to drop down and give up that high ground positioning. So for now, they're going to just let the cart move for a while. They need to get close so they can actually brawl out here. Now Parallax are retaking some space, and an ult in the backline might help open things up.
No, but Slapodopoulos is where he wants to be. He's already flanked around into the back, and Furious eating so much damage from those submachine guns. One apiece makes it hard to try and peel back for him. Barrick realizes he's back there and manages to get that last hit, but their Furious already out of the equation, as Prosper's going to have to back up just a little bit. He's going to wait around the corner, waiting for his team to sort of make their way back to point, so that way he can go more on a tear. 987 for the headshot damage, forces Leon to back up just a little bit with the accursed arm there. That's already what he's setting up for. Shoots it out, but doesn't really find much. Freeze God finds some nice air-to-air shots on Prosper and manages to get that last hit, make that a double kill for Freeze God as he decides to swap targets and move on to the Koga. Tries to get a good shot, but he has to use the ice block, and instead goes down to 2-2 once that cooldown, once that active window is expired. Slapodopoulos is trying to force Barrett back, but everyone's just holding their ground right now. They're slowly inching their way forward to a potential zone on the side of Parallax.
I think I want Freeze to play a little bit more with maybe the Leon. Someone has to force the dashes out of the Koga, because they need to buy enough time for that to happen, right? If Freeze is fighting Koga when he has all his dashes, it's a harder matchup. As you can see here with Slop being able to just disengage and run out, but maybe one other person could help him out. Look at that though, over the wall, Prosper comes in and just cleans up the back.
Yeah, that's another double for the man. Make that a triple kill as he decides to swap his targets onto Strix. And Slop is going to come around the corner, say, no quadra for you, my friend. I'll make sure that we clean this up accordingly. As Dentic goes down and the cart rounds the corner. Everyone's coming up off of their respawn timers and a couple dismounts, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you want to contest this objective as Barrick is trying his best. In the scenario, drops down and uses the dome shield, but the wall goes up, so at least Closar is blocking a little bit of damage right there. Genos goes down as Freeze God dives into the back line, and they take care of Closar soon after, and Parallax Gaming are able to defend by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, last second kill there in the back line really saved their life with the Genos going down, and actually, the timing of that was perfect for Parallax. Now that Celestial don't have the assert dominance anymore, that's a tool that would have been fantastic for bullying the backlines that won't be in the picture. I think Celestial, or Parallax, excuse me, have to play on the low ground. They have to play to watch through the inside of that quarry to not let the Ash and either the Koga or the Androxus just walk all the way through. Once they get complete control, Barrick can't survive through that much hit scan. That's the weakness of Barrick, why he's not really being picked in these other regions. He can't live. The headshot bonus damage is just too much for his low health pool. Either they need to have picked another point tank, whether it be Terminus, Khan, Atlas, or they need to be able to play aggressive in this quarry side and prevent him from getting surrounded and just completely isolate.
You know, it's really Prosper who's going to play on the side here, but realizes that his support's being dived and peels perfectly for him. In the sense of just killing the target that's trying to dive your support, gets rid of him, and Dentic is next on the list. An early game pick on Freeze makes it a lot harder for them to respond with, as now he's zooming right on in and finds a couple good shots on the Kronz, leaving him in the dirt as well. The rest of Parallax are trying to make their way back, but it's hard to try and fight against this Koga-Andro combo.
Yeah, they have complete control for now, and look at this, they have to throw themselves on the point, but not enough. Void Grip's just enough to force the second dash, and Parallax, they don't even have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Leon graces her way right in to try and see if she can stop anything that is the freight train of Celestial Esports, but can't stop a train from rolling at that sort of speed. It's going to be a lot harder for you to try and zone these guys out when they have not stopped, they have not taken their foot off of the gas pedal, making it really, really hard for them to really try and reclaim any sort of ground it is that they've had. You see them all bunched up on the bridge right here, and Koga wants a piece. He's already moving in, but may have been off a little bit more than he can chew. Ends up getting backed off, or at least killed, as Tutu dives in the backline and takes care of that Furia.
An attempt was made. That dive from Tutu was actually insane, and Prosper's cleaning up on it. That shield perfectly blocked all of the pistol shots, and as long as Prosper can keep kiting, he should be able to live for this retake. I want to give props right now to Closar. I think this Inara has been phenomenal in this composition. Being able to survive the double backline and draw aggro is what's really enabling Prosper and Slop to do whatever they want on these hit scans. When they have to look at the Inara and an Ashe sneaks by and a Koga climbs up on your right side and you're not paying attention, that's just going to turn the tables, and it's why this comp that we thought maybe wouldn't have the same level of advantage is able to do what it's been doing.
Good assert dominance to make sure she doesn't give up the ground that her team has already been reclaiming, as now Furia is one of the only last members remaining, and she's going to be taken out too. That's a team wipe, baby, for Celestial Esports. They have Koga's ultimate and Geno's ultimate already up and available for them if they feel like they need to use it. But based off of how this is going, they might not even need to. Once again, stuck in spawn and a little bit further back. This is deja vu from the last round, but the question is, will they be able to convert this point? Slop goes down thanks to the Ice Storm being used directly onto the Koga. Prosper's hiding, waiting in the mist, seeing if anyone wants to move up. Sees that Freeze is right there, gets a good shot, and he's lowered to half health. Moves all the way in the back line as well, but it doesn't use the other dashes to escape, just ends up dying as the Void Grip goes out and manages to catch the Eevee from moving any more forward. But Kronz on a 4-man already with the quadra kill pushes so many different people out, and that's a good retake for them to try and make sure that no one else can make it back on the point. But with the Koga ultimate still there, he's biding his time and waiting. He might end up using his dashes, and he does. Gonna pop the ultimate, or not. He doesn't even touch the ground and didn't even get the contest timer for the overtime. That quadra kill directly on the Kronz makes that so important for them to fight back and get that reclaim on the point that they've wanted.
That's when Leon will really be able to open up, when you can snowball that hard with that inheritance card giving you that reset on a limbs. This is where Leon shines, and why she's a riskier pick. She only really will be able to have crazy plays when your team has already done a little bit of damage or you have a slight advantage. Finding that advantage is the hardest part with her. You have to connect your presence, or you're not going to be able to get that level of snowball and aggression. Aggression might have to be the name of the game for Parallax, though. I think Kronz and Freeze have to move together. Down a side, whatever it is. Kronz can't just stand next to Dintic up top. They need to play down one of these angles and stop these flankers from going in, and stop just firing onto Closar. But it looks like Kronz going to sit up top again and just try to harass the back. This time he's looking at the flank a bit, but look at all this aggro that Closar's soaking on point.
And they're losing the area by fidget spinners. Look at where Koga is already. Two of them have been running up the side. It's going to make it a lot harder for them to try and move in, but the Inflame is what they're going to use to start things off, as the Inara is already extremely low. Closar is going to go down, as now Freeze God going on a tear, drops down the Ice Storm, but only gets Void Grip. Might end up going down to Xenos, and he does. Unfortunate for him, but what's even better is the fact that Parallax have been able to find the trades that they've been looking for. This is it. Uses the presence, doesn't find the hit. The Enlightenment goes out, and Koga dashes in and out. Manages to heal himself back up so he doesn't go down. The Kronz putting on more and more aggression. Seismic Crash goes out, and Slop takes that opportunity to slide right on in and use that ultimate to get the damage and force the people off of point. Dintic finds that trade, but Xenos is not going to let his teammate go down without a fight, as he's going to take care of Outlander and take care of another Freeze God. Prosper are going to find 2-1 apiece, as another double kill for Prosper is going to end up with them in control of this fight.
I love seeing these hyper-mobile flankers being able to peel for their teams. Usually you think, oh yeah, I have mobility so I can go into the back line and do whatever I want, but you just see them waiting patiently, and when the other team engages, they go to counter it. This time though, Prosper finds that counter aggression, takes the high ground, and I don't know, Parallax can't do anything. Everyone's dead but Vidaiden. She has to walk out of here.
Oh my gosh, she didn't have a chance at all to even make it back. She just got off of her mount to try and make it back because of the dismounts that they had from Slop, and they just pushed her out. And then because of that situation, now they have to wait for another, for her to come up off of respawn to try and reclaim some ground. But at the same time, look at how far up everybody is. Another kill from Prosper is going to make that a lot harder, but the Ice Storm has to be dropped to make sure they can get rid of 2-2, but the Assert Dominance comes in clutch as a double kill for Closar. Mother Earth doing her job and making sure that she gets that double kill to allow the rest of Celestial to try and roll the cart on and forward. 2 members down makes it hard to try and fight back, but it seems like Barrett's going to take those chances and push up and hold his ground by the mine shaft as Prosper and Toot Toot are on the side once again. Leon tries to slide in to get at least more damage directly onto that target, but it's not going to be able to find it. They actually trade out 1 for 1 as Toot Toot goes down due to the peel, but Slop and Prosper are the problem here. They get rid of one, but how do they answer the other issue? Prosper's already looking at Barrick right there as he's trying to hold on to as long as he can until Furia comes right back up, gets stunned by the Pyre Strike, and that's a good start for Parallax.
I think the dive from Kronz, even if it ended up with him trading his life, was what they needed. It pushed them back so Dintic could take a different angle. They just can't have this double backline both waiting. They have to play one kind of in the middle. They have to play a little bit aggressive and actually go for those kills, and it ended up working perfectly. I do love Klosar's aggression there too, being willing to walk in to a place already being held by his tank just to follow up on those kills. This Earthing Guard, I think this is going to be the engagement. Early shoulder bash in, plus a Geno Assault, and it starts with a pick on Dintic.
Yeah, Dintic is how they're going to open things up as they find another directly on the Kronz. Barrick's already pretty low as he's going to dash in, dash out, and doesn't want to commit to that too hard because of the fact that he's going to let his team help him out, do the job for him. Slop is going to find a nice ultimate from Koga and finish that off with Celestial Esports' first point in the set.
I love watching Koga play against Barrick. It's a little painful as someone who likes to play Barrick and knows how painful, how awful it is into Koga, but just seeing how much Koga can get away with. You go Wrecker, you get more energy from Adrenaline Junkie if you shoot on his shields. Cyclone Strike, the ultimate, it pierces any personal shields Barrick gets, and every shot's a headshot. Barrick is all head, and you're getting so much energy back from that. Being able to just play that Koga really defensively, farming off of the Barrick until you're ready to move in, until Prosper's already turned some heads. The Koga pick, risky at first, but I think it was exactly what they needed.
Yeah, it paid off. Slop and Prosper were super, super strong throughout that game. The Andro and the Koga combined. You got rid of one. The other was an issue. But we've talked about this situation long enough in the draft. Let's toss it back to the desk to get their thoughts.
Thank you, Fawn. A Celestial Esports victory keeps Brazil off the board in the summer finals with a 4-2 win here for Europe. Gormizer, it felt like Celestial just had so much point control every single time. They were often able to get pretty quick caps. Only that third point took them a little bit longer. But eventually, with that third point, a little bit of a harder-earned victory on the point fight, they ultimately end up converting for the first time and getting the 4-2 victory.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I realistically need to do what I said yesterday, which is just stop doubting Celestial when they lock in Koga. Every time I see it, the first thing I want to do, and maybe it's just because of track record with Koga, or maybe it's just the way his matchup goes, that my mind immediately thinks, yeah, but can you really make it work? And they've answered yes almost every single time. Of course, Prosper has another stellar game here as well on this Androxus, which was a huge factor for this as well. I mean, look at how often he was able to chase down, specifically Freeze God. Pretty much the only job he needed this entire game was stop the flank from flanking, and he did that and then some along the side. With the Koga kind of working in tandem, it just became a hit scan nightmare to try and disengage from them, to try and stay alive. If you're Barrick, unfortunately you're a walking headshot for Koga, and then anybody else, it was just slim pickings at that point.
Prosper had such a phenomenal game on that Andro, and we were asking coming into this game, how hard can FRZ God carry? And he gets a signature pick in the Eevee, and it just doesn't do enough that time around to find Parallax Gaming their first win. I mean, the Furia, we were excited to see that. 1-6 there for the Furia selection. Just felt like Parallax was fighting uphill a lot. 9-14 for FRZ God. You compare that to the 23-8 for Prosper Logic, and you really see which flank was more effective.
And it's just difficult, when you're coming in. It's one thing to play with a sub, which is going to already kind of shake things up for you, but because of the shuffles they've had to make, specifically Outlander not being on support, now having to play tank, things like that.
Yeah.
You can't, when you have a sub, especially at this level, you can't just sub them in for DPS. It's never going to be able to work. Support and frontline is probably the best spots for them. But it's so essential. Every single role has to be firing on all cylinders to make sure that you can shut down a team like Celestial, that it still feels like an uphill battle. Maybe if you can get an even more signature pick for Freeze God, which is kind of hard to do than Eevee. I guess the only one that could work is maybe Bomb King. Unless you can go that route, I just don't know if it's going to work. But hey, Jack Falls, it's a map to do it.
Yeah, it could be the case here for Parallax, and certainly feel for that squad. I definitely don't want to say that, you know, they're super far behind because of the situation, but not having FRZ God yesterday and not having Midtow today, certainly a big blow for this team. So we'll see if they can scrap together a better performance than a 4-2 that was competitive. At least on those defenses, they looked pretty good the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard part. And I think Jag Falls, you can still defend here. This is a map that you can easily push to 7 points, but just as easily that defense can be broken, and I think that's where things are going to be maybe centered more actually here in picks and bans than they are in game. I think there's a lot that can be broken open. You know, if you have a Bomb King on your side, it makes it so much easier if you're able to potentially, for Celestial, you know, run back some of these flanks that have been working out well for you. Talus can be big here, which is something that runs pretty well with controller players, so Celestial would love to play it, but also something that's been big in Brazil, so maybe kind of a double-edged pick if you can grab it and strip it away from Parallax Gaming at the same time, because odds are, at least in my eyes, the Vivian, I wouldn't be surprised to see them potentially ban away either a Ruckus because she has similar play and Celestial like it, or just straight up go back to the Victor because of how potent he can be.
Might be the call, as a couple of supports taken off the board here by Celestial. It's Io and Corvus, and those have been 2 of the 3 most prioritized supports so far this weekend. Genos rounding out that trifecta. But instead of banning something like that, Parallax actually gives some respect over to Slop with that Koga ban. Celestial's been undefeated on that pick so far.
True, it deserves it, honestly. It's still one of those things that if Celestial pick it up, it's going to do well. That's just how it's going to work. It's almost a 1-to-1 equation for them of, do we have Koga? If yes, then win. And so far, it's been running that way. Plus, with the way Parallax are playing, you know, you've got 2 support bans that are coming through. You grab one more right here in the Genos. You're making sure that their sub is going to be feeling some pressure, potentially forced to go back to something like the Furia. And if you make the rest of the team, well, too comfortable on Celestial, then it becomes way too easy for them to run over you. I think it is very much the get Freeze God somewhere comfortable, get everybody as much as you can in terms of comfort on Parallax, because you're going to need every pick going your way.
Well, a couple high win rate champions locked in here. Both Dredge and Grover have performed very well so far during the summer finals, and Parallax going to try and keep that trend going with their top 2 picks. A little bit surprised to not see Victor quite yet, Gormizer. Yeah. Do you feel the same way?
It's odd to see him go so far down. It's just one of those things, Jag Falls, because there's not a ton of long lines of sight, he's maybe not the most prioritized champion on this map, but doesn't mean he has a bad game on here. It just depends on how the players are feeling, right? Victor can run off pretty well here, but there's also the Koga, banned away. Talus, you can get some hit scan that's maybe closer range. That can maybe work it out well. Brazil's been picking up Lex on this map quite a bit, and Parallax Gaming maybe not at the top of that list of Lex pickers, but it is something that their region specifically has been bringing. So there's a couple of flanks that maybe fill those shoes. I don't know if I want to use the term better, but in just a different way.
Sure. Well, there is the Victor. Just went down a little bit further than we've seen him basically all weekend, as Terminus joins the roster as well for Parallax. So they've got a pretty beefy front line now. They've got good damage. I feel like Parallax Gaming's composition's coming together, but you look across the way and you see a lot of champions that have been heavily prioritized so far for Celestial. Genos, Inara, Bomb King, Talus with a 42% pick rate. I mean, it feels like Celestial is just really identifying the champions they're seeing a lot of, and they're able to snatch them all up on the same side.
Look, if I don't even care what the bottom 2 picks are here for Celestial. If you get Genos, Bomb King on Jag Falls, that's almost enough on its own to guarantee you a win. You add an Inara, now an Ashe on the side of that, then it's one of those things that you should not, like, this draft just should not lose on this map. And the way they've been playing, it should not lose on this map. I'm excited to see what it is. I do like that Parallax, the Victor goes double in part. It works really well because Celestial have 2 players that have been very solid on Victor. But I also love him being picked away because he does share a hairstyle with Prosper Logic. That kind of buff needs to be nerfed. And it's just something that's going to come through. But the Torvald shakes things up just enough that I think Dredge is going to cause trouble for Inara. I don't know if it's enough.
I mean, Torvald, a champion we haven't seen picked at all so far in these summer finals. Why now, Gormizer? What do you think made it look so attractive?
Honestly, I think the shielding's going to help them out here. I think it's going to help deal with the Talus. It's going to help deal with the Bomb King. It's going to force them to go maybe away from the Cauterize, help this Grover flourish a little bit. Victor can then use his lifesteal a little bit more often. There's a lot more survivability built in for Parallax if Celestial have to buy Wrecker. And that'll help in the early rounds, but once Wrecker's online, then Victor and Dredge, they're going to get a little bit of a damage amp if that's the route they choose to go with this Torvald that can help keep up with the Genos. Nice area of denial around like objectives, but I just don't know if it's going to be the end-all be-all, right? Once you get to late game, if it goes 3-3, then Celestial should still be able to take this one no problem.
We'll see if that's the case. Celestial looking to go up 2-0 in this best of 5 and still keep Brazil blanked on the weekend. Fawn and Kresnik, it's all yours.
Thank you, my friend Aggro, and I'm excited to see some Jag Falls, man. I mean, we've been seeing Ice Mines, we've been seeing Stone Keep, but not a lot of Jag, and it's always good to see this map because this is the type of high-paced action that you enjoy to see coming out from not only both of these teams, but what the map allows. It's always these constant skirmishes, and I think both drafts are good here. Do you feel like the Dredge will have more impact than maybe like the Talus or the Bomb? Well, the Dredge versus Bomb King matchup, how do you feel about that? That's what I should be asking.
Bomb King starts the game so much stronger, specifically because the Dredge went Scuttle. Scuttle needs Deft Hands 2 or 3 before he can really pop off. So knowing that you have that limitation, if Slop just gets really aggressive early, he should be able to just bully this Dredge out. Yes, he has the potential of a Torvald pocket, but I made a tier list recently, and the only champion indeed was Torvald, and you're about to see why with how aggressive this Ashe and Talus are going to be on.
Yeah, you already see that the Torvald may not be the move here. The shield was there, but in that same instance was gone almost instantly as they find not 1, but 4 picks. One of them just respawning, being the Victor on the mount, has to make his way back to point, but Talus pushing up this far and getting these dismounts is what should be concerning because they can't make it back to point already. And this composition is so strong for a lot of these early game skirmishes and these fights that you like to see on Jag.
And these retakes are going to be so hard for Parallax too because they have such low mobility tanks. The only movement ability they have across both their tanks is Shatterfall for Term, and that's it.
Right.
And that's not really much to rely on. An Outlander tries to challenge a Grumpy Bomb and just gets melted down immediately by Slop right behind it.
Yeah, everyone gets grouped up right there, which is a good detonate from Slopadopoulos as he's able to spread out the damage between different targets, forcing Torvald to use that shield a little bit early. Prosper is putting on the pressure too, and making sure that they don't have much of a say in the aggression that they're able to put on the side of Celestial Esports. The card's still rolling right on through as Talus has now knocked him off the side with the blitz
with
upper.
The true power.
He's actually knocked him off with the ultimate scar. Sorry, not the blitz upper, but with the true power. Ulti him right off the side, so Grover is no longer there, at least for a couple more seconds. You've got the King Bomb up and ready as well. Slopadopoulos goes down thanks to Kronz. But look how close the card already is. The Kraken goes out, but that's just to make sure they don't cash it in immediately. Do time in space finds a hit on the Freeze God as he was trying to kill Close R. They did, but they traded out 2 lives for 1.
The fact that they had to Whirlwind to defend this is going to be terrible for them as this game keeps going forward. Term getting CC'd, but Talus going in the back. Term can't handle being surrounded, but it doesn't even matter. Prosper just goes for somebody else, and Celestial walk it right in. They don't have the health to live through the amount of damage Celestial are bringing.
They put on a clinic in that very first round. My goodness. And I'm so glad I got to see that through time and space because that opened up the door of opportunity for them, right? They were trying to get a pick to try and make sure they can sort of flip the situation on its head, but then it ended up backfiring. Very good awareness from Genos to be able to utilize that ultimate when he did and not a moment sooner or later for that fact.
It was a great bait. Just knowing that Closar was low in the backline, he was going to just, as soon as someone went to push Closar was the best possible time for CNOS to use it. And still a lot of strong ultimates up for Celestial. They have Assert Dominance, King Bomb, and Seismic Crash all up. And Parallax, nothing in the tank, honestly. Term hasn't really done much of anything this game so far. I think 0 and 4, only 67% of the first ultimate. Tutude already delaying on the side, and if your only kill is going to be an immune target, that's not going to be easy to get anything out of.
Yeah, everyone's grouped up, and the King Bomb's rolling right on through. Even if he doesn't find the mark, that puts the fear of just the King Bomb rolling right on through into anyone that is on the side of Parallax Gaming. It makes it that much more difficult for them to try and provide any sort of pressure or way in against these people. Freeze God trying to plug in shots to different targets is trying to make the best of a situation that is hard to come back from. But Terminus has managed to make his way sort of around the corner, but Kronz goes down not a moment sooner. They can't really make it back. A nice Anara wall. Realized that Khan was flanking, was flanking all the way around in the back. The Torvald was there and put up the wall so he couldn't get in to contest.
That was such good awareness. I mean, of all the people, that was the Grover behind. You're never expecting a Grover to be mounted into your backline, but the Inara they knew it was there, saved the wall for that, because the Ashe had more than enough CC to stop that Terminus up front. And Celestial are just keeping the gas pedal held all the way down. The Bomb King and the Talus fighting in secret. Outlander dead immediately, spending Reanimate for what is effectively nothing.
Yeah, and he has to back up. He's already revived in an awful spot as well. Ends up getting taken down just as soon as he came back up. The barrage gets utilized from Freeze God, but for not much longer can these guys hold on. They're being forced back in their spawn almost instantly. A map like Jag, when you have the aggression, when you have the early game composition, is unforgiving, and we're seeing that be the case right now.
And they're finally scaling up with the Dredge, but now the Torvald's going to be playing into potential Wrecker with an Assert Dominance combo in the backline, finding two!
My goodness! Xenos with the nice through time and space, but Toot is the one that set that up, baby. Celestial Esports 2-0 already. Dust your hands off of that one. I mean, I have no words for how that last fight went. That was absolutely insane.
Blink and you miss it there. Every single ultimate just being comboed together. I love the Ashe Genos combo, something that we don't see as much nowadays, and having a Nara, Ashe, and Genos all on the same team. That's all the setup they need. Every single time and space was set up and found kills, and if that's happening, you're just getting so much more value than every player on the other team.
Oh man, that was super excited to see that towards the end. I'm not going to get too excited about this. I'm going to toss it back to Ryan so he can talk about that one, because that was insane.
Thank you, Fawn. Insane indeed. Insane that we're already here in the post-game death segment for game number 2. Celestial stomps out Parallax 4-0. Gore, it was an annihilation there for the Talus. Prosper Logic continues to impress. Overall, Celestial just look like they've really hit their stride.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to word it. I mean, that was a just class act for Jag Falls. I mean, everything they drafted worked out well. Prosper goes 15-0-3. He goes undying through that entire game, so they weren't even able to answer this Talus. But again, I think it comes down to maybe just the combos that come through. Toot does a great job of being able to create his zone, but Slopodopolis, when you have a Luminary boost on a Bomb King on Jag Falls, which is one of Bomb King's best maps, if not his best map, it's just bad news bears from that point forward. And that's not even factoring in your hit scan player just absolutely knocking it out of the park here. So I think it was just too much to handle there for Parallax. I like the idea. Terminus isn't exactly what I think of when I think premier frontlines that you're going to be bringing to Jag Falls, but he's good at dealing with Inara. The Torvald theory behind him is going to be solid. Unfortunately, it just didn't get to come to fruition.
No, certainly not. Parallax never really got off the ground here in game number 2, and I think a lot of that credit deserves to go to Prosper Logic. You don't see 15-0 very often at this level, and he's been delivering on the promise of maybe a rematch, which could be coming up next if this trend continues here for Celestial. It's been pretty dominant for them through these last few games, and now they're staring a rematch with District 69 right in the face. They just need to be able to win this next game, or 1 out of the next 3, and then our next set would be that rematch between the 2 European sides.
And that's one of the things, it feels weird to say it this way because it's maybe going to imply something about Parallax Gaming that I don't mean to, but Celestial just feel hungry. They just want to go forward, you know what I mean? And it's not to say that Parallax doesn't, but it's one of those things that when you start wanting it a little bit more, I think you start to play at that different level, and that's what I'm starting to feel out of Celestial, is just not just wanting a rematch. I think they want to go forward and beat D69 to showcase that they can still do it, very much like I'm sure Project wants to beat Sanguine to showcase that they can still do it. Things like that that I think are playing into this. And honestly, right now, the picks are working out for them. You had kind of highlighted in the last draft phase, but everything they're doing, it just seems like they're looking at it and saying, hey, that worked once. Let's go ahead and see if we can make that work. Or, this has been working for us all the time, Koga, so we're just going to go ahead and keep locking it in until someone tells us not to.
It's been tough to draft around, for sure, and I think that's been a huge factor for them and their success so far here today, as we will be heading to Serpent Beach with Parallax Gaming and the hopes of the whole Brazilian region kind of on their back right now with their other counterpart, the other seed coming out, Carnage Gaming, already eliminated. Feel like it's tough here for Parallax. They've got a lot of pressure on them probably.
It's your last hope for Brazil to be able to stay alive in the tournament, so it is a little bit more pressure kind of mounting behind them, and I think this is a good map to slow it down a little bit. You know, I love Parallax Gaming because they did something that is always going to win me over. They banned Ice Mines, so the main map that comes through that is that slow it down isn't available for them. The only other two that really help change the pace of games would maybe be Frozen Guard. And honestly, I'm thinking Serpent Beach lately just because of the high ground differential on the defense. When you have that high ground, it makes it a lot easier to just slow the aggressors down if they don't have anything that can get up there consistently. So a lot of it can come down to draft and then just play style. You can at least get yourself a 4-2 on this one. You know, at minimum, you can at least keep things under wraps for that long.
Well, another Koga ban up against Celestial. That might not be the last time you see this weekend, because I think that might be something that teams catch on to pretty quickly, as both Eevee and Io banned by Celestial. And Parallax actually decided to take the Androxus, which has been a pretty successful selection, 55% pick rate, 45% win rate. Been in a lot of games and won little under half of them. But first pick, is that what you expect there for the Andro?
I think he's good on this map, but I feel like Maeve has been very good on this map. We've had a few flanks that have just been solid on this map, and with Eevee gone, maybe that pool is limited and you want to go for something hit scan to maybe take it away from Celestial, considering the game that we saw Prosper have 2 games ago on Splitstone. So it kind of feels good, but I'm not sure if I'm thinking first pick. It definitely has potential to be solid enough. I just think what you're pairing it with takes some of that potential away, right? Locking in Androxus first pick, awesome, it can work. And then we scoop up Terminus. Okay, I'm a little more timid about it. Then we grab the Ying. For Parallax, this is all right, but I don't know if it's going to be able to take down Celestial this early on, especially with a Genos and a Corvus.
Yeah, the two prominent healers not named Io, both selected here by Celestial, and now they get Victor, who, for my money, has looked like the premier damage dealer so far this weekend. You gotta like what you're seeing from Celestial, but they certainly do need some frontline. And hey, what about the most successful frontliner and potentially the best in the game right now in Inara, 4th overall for our team? Gotta be feeling pretty happy about that if you're the EU boys.
Yeah, and a 73% win rate. And, you know, maybe it's not like this pool of 100 games and she's won 73 of them, but that's high. No matter what, no matter how many samples you're taking, that's going to be good to showcase that Inara can absolutely hold her own over here. And I'm thinking about it, you know, one of the things I always mention is the fact that with Genos, it's never enough healing for just an Inara. But now you've got Corvus, you've got 2 marks, and if I'm throwing 1 to Inara, 1 over there to Victor, Genos can get a 3rd one out for the next damage dealer, whether it's going on to Corvus to maybe boost him a little bit, or whoever they lock in here. It just means that Victor, with lifesteal in his build, a Corvus mark, a Genos mark, like, Cauterize is such a necessity here for Parallax, and I don't think you can get it online soon enough to be able to deal with them. This feels very dangerous. Celestial are just going to sustain through everything.
Yeah, well, so are Parallax, potentially. They've locked in 3 supports on their side of the 2 supports of Celestial, Ying, Furia, and Maldamba. But Gore, when I'm thinking about high damage output supports, Ying, Furia, and Maldamba, none of those 3 really come to mind. Maybe Furia, but feel like they're going to be lacking damage here.
I think Furia can absolutely do a lot. Ying surprisingly can, that like she's got this hit scan presence, and in the right hands she can. But if I'm saying, hey, who's going to do more, this Ying or that Victor? I know which way I'm going to be leaning. Who's going to do more, this Furia or that Buck? I know which way I'm leaning. So maybe the most pressure of them all, I'm going to assume Freeze God on Androxus. If you do not have the best game of your life, I think right now, you might be looking down the barrel of a 3-0, and Parallax might be going home.
Oh, then that's easy. No problem at all. You know, just got to turn it on, flip the switch, hit the jets, whatever you want to say. Parallax really depending on this Androxus play for sure, and the play of their lone frontliner in the Terminus. The hopes of the Brazilian region ride on Parallax Gaming, and they are walking the tightrope. We'll see if they can make it to the other side of Game 3 with Fawn and Kresnik.
Indeed, we will see that, and very interesting duality of drafts here. You got 3 supports on one side, so you've got the survivability portion of the composition, but do you think that holds any merit against Genos Corvus? That's going to be a very aggressive with Luminary, and you're spreading marks all over the place with spreading influence.
Yeah, the lifesteal from the Corvus plus the damage boost from the Genos will pair very well, especially with this Genos, but on the Victor, excuse me. But PARALLAX, they're running a standard. We saw triple support quite a bit earlier, and we know how much it can do potentially, especially this stun Damba, being able to slow down this Buck or anyone else who tries to get aggressive. It's FRZ on the Damba as well, trying to spam from the ground, but Vide just peeks out a little bit too far, and the healing is going to let Prosper get away from Outlander.
Yeah, and now he's going to be able to turn tails directly onto the Terminus and make sure that that damage is pumped into him effectively and causes him to back up a little bit. Knows the Androx is over there, but a nice Pyre Strike from the Furia is going to be able to get that stun, but nobody's been on the point the whole time this has been happening. Most people have been off of it. Now they've made their way onto the point, but it's on the back of it's on the back of one of the supports. They're the ones that actually have to contest that, and they end up getting picked off just as soon as they end up touching directly down onto the point. Now Outlander's the only one remaining with the triple kill from Slapodopoulos, making it even harder for them to contest because they can't. Points already captured, and with the reversal used, Androxus might even be in a bad spot as Slop comes right back around and slaps Dentic out of the way.
Buck is the perfect pairing for this, being able to get that aggressive and follow up on that damage. And I think it was a perfect start to that for Celestial. They knew they couldn't contest the Inara, so just pull back, bait, wait as long as you can, and then as soon as they go, oh, it's like 90%, we gotta do something. Then the Buck pounces and finds that ending kill, and Dintic tries to find an opening kill of his own, goes down to Toot on the side, and looks like PARALLAX are just stuck up on this high ground.
This could be an opportunity for him to go buck wild. He's just waiting for his moment, his chance to leap up there and create more space at the back of that Inflame, though. They want to try and move their way in, but Buck misses a leap just for a little bit. But it's still, they're not giving up any ground despite that Inflame being there. Dintic dove all the way into the back line and deals with Prosper, so that's a good start for how this Inflame wanted to go, but that is not going to be a good sign as Through Time and Space gets utilized and manages to catch Kronz as he's trying to get his way out of the, trying to push himself out of the way of that ultimate with the withdraw. It's not going to be enough though, as he's going to get caught just on the very tail end of the Through Time and Space. Revive is there and Xenos goes down, but still, they're the ones with their foot on the gas. They haven't let up despite everything. And now they use the Illusory Rift as well to make sure that they can provide that extra sustainability to fight back that Buck. But with the Genos healing and the Buck recovery, it was a little bit too much for even Freeze God to get that. But he is playing Damage Damba, so I mean, maybe that's a factor. I don't know.
Just no Cauterize. You have to go Deft Hands on Damage Damba, or else you don't have the combos that you need to really get those insta-kills, which is what makes them good. Yeah, all the way back there, dismounting the two of them. They're going to have to take a long way, but is anyone contesting? They're just letting the cart roll in. They don't know. Outlander Kronz. Finally, they contest it, but do they have the damage to follow up?
We'll have to see if they do, because that was a good dismount from Dintic. At least that allows them to be staggered out so heavily, just now making their way back to the point, but Kronz still goes down despite that. Tosses out the snake to try and see if he can get the stun directly on the Genos. Doesn't quite find that one as the Void Grip goes out and prevents him from putting on any more aggression than possible. Dintic doing a great job of getting these dismounts and keeping that pressure onto their backline, but they still are on the cart, and the bodies are piling up on the side of Parallax.
I think seeing the aggression from Dintic, it makes me feel like those people who, when you're picking in like a casual and someone sees no flank available, they're like, oh yes, I will now flank, because Dintic is doing nothing but going that far into the backline. The Spear could help them hold here potentially, but this Time and Space should kill Outlander and no one's going to contest.
Yep, no one can contest is really the more accurate way of saying that. No one can push up to even make space for their team. You have such squishy targets, and that's coming into play so heavily. The fact that situations like this happen to the point where Terminus is trying to create space for his team and no one else can follow up.
I still love that we watched that recovery of Slop, I think, jumping in on the side, showing what Buck can do. I know his win rate was a little lower than I think it should have been with what Buck's able to get away with, and watching the timing of that jumps in, they just don't have the damage to follow up, no Cauterize yet, and Buck can live through an outrageous amount of damage. It's also so hard for PARALLAX without that early Cauterize to really find any of these kills with the Corvus and Genos hard pocket here potentially burning down anybody's going to be a hard feat. They have all that healing in response. Corvus healing the mark targets gives them the cooldown back, and with Ying getting stuck going to point, that net will get them that first pick and a huge opening for Celestial.
Yeah, not even fighting on the sides. Buck, aka Slop, wants to be the one that pushes this one in as the Corvus ultimate gets utilized. And so does the Dread Serpent, tries to back out and manages to eat that damage thanks to the recovery and the bulk up being a little bit too strong. But Buck Wild is what's going to be utilized. But look at how long he's staying alive. With the recovery still up too. Corvus comes right around to help out. He's still living despite all the damage. Jumps right in and gets that kill on the Krons. But you still got a few other supports to deal with. Dintic is all the way in the back, getting those dismounts and forcing the people to walk their way back to point instead of being mounted up. But the Anar has made it all the way in. He's just rotated all the way around. Toot on the Anar is now able to contest the point and force out anyone who might be trying to escape, like this Maldamba.
And he is caught in there, and you can see how long that Buck survived on that backside because of the lack of cauterize. Still, no cauterize might hurt them again, but no resilience is going to hurt them even more on the side of Celestial with that Dread Serpent getting 1 and maybe 2 kills here.
Dread Serpent gets utilized, and they still don't have a kill on Toot. Now they do, but he was able to contest for a little bit longer than probably they would have wanted to. But 93%, and thanks to the comeback mechanic, it makes it that much more prominent. Jumps to point to cause a stall for a little bit longer, and is still going to get stunned out and killed. Dintic finds that last hit directly onto Prosper, and because of that, now they're able to convert this cart into something, or are they? What? Okay, there we go. They were actually able to wait. Okay, yeah, okay. They did end up getting that point. They did end up getting that point, and they managed to convert on that. I got confused for a second. I was like, they weren't able to capture it how fast I was expecting them to be able to, but that's neither here nor there. They captured the point, and now they're rolling their way right on through.
Yeah, and having all this CC, if they can win this game, if they can just snowball it from here, the CC is going to help them significantly. Having the beam, having the Damba stun, especially with the burst damage from Okono's Wrath, it can be valuable. Stun Damba was underrated before the Snake Pit card got reworked, and if they can scale up to Deft Hands 3, they can get these almost 22,000 damage burst combos onto them. Deal with what's happening in the backline first, potentially, with Dintic going very deep onto this Buck and finding himself on the respawn screen.
Yeah. He's playing Gray Scree Simulator right now as he has to make his way back to where he was before. Hopefully his team will be able to hold on for just a little bit longer. It seems like they are, but not if Slop has anything to say about it with how aggressive he is being right now. Gets healed right back up and manages to escape just narrowly. A lot of burst damage coming out from that Calamity Burst from Terminus. Is getting pressured once again, but Corvus is there to heal, and the damage is a little bit too strong for them to be able to try and make sure that their healer is still alive. But at the end of the day, they have to use the Illusory Rift to make sure that they can sustain their way on a cart push. But Dintic gets caught out once again. Void Grip being there, escapes narrowly, but that's still not a good look for them on trying to retake the point.
Look at this Terminus peel is fantastic, and it's just so hard for the Terminus. He can peel for his teammates, but he can't get any kills with that damage he's soaking with the Siphon. No cauterize on it. Another Dread Serpent from FRC. He's doing so much, but again, no cauterize. He gets recover. He could just tank through everything Slop does and just jumps right away.
Yeah, Terminus is trying to put that pressure on the Slop, but all he did was eat a little bit more damage than he probably would have hoped to, with Anar being the only one on point contesting against 4 members on Parallax Gaming. They aren't able to fight back in this scenario. Buck Wild, I believe, ended up getting used, or seemed to be in the process of using the recovery to make sure that once he dropped down, he didn't die instantly, but he still gets taken out as Terminus has now made his way back. And with Anar pushing in and having to use that seismic crash, no one else is able to touch on the point. And that's a 2-2. Parallax Gaming managing to get their first 2 points this set.
What a turnaround for them as well, I think, playing to the strengths of their composition here. Dintic dying still on the flank, but those triple support comp, playing as a unit, stunning people, chaining that CC, and letting Outlander get all of these pockets. I think it's working great so far. Outlander's out-damaging the Furia, the Androxus, because he's just getting so much, and FRZ topping the charts on this Damba. Stun Damba, again, a very underrated damage character, but once you get to that Deft Hands 3 like Freeze has, with that lack of resilience on some of the members of Celestial, he can chain you from full to dead, especially with the backup from any other character on the other team doing damage.
Yeah, and it's it's hard to be able to try and find your opening when you have 3 supports that are on your team, right? I mean, you have the sustainability and the survivability, sure, but that burst damage and being boosted by Luminary and then having to deal with that extra lifesteal that Corvus can provide you is just so difficult, and we see that right there. He actually tried to use the Dread Serpent to fuel for himself, but it wasn't enough, as Prosper is now able to shred through 2 different targets on the enemy team. Corvus firing free right now, just trying to spread out as much damage as he can, but it's still not enough, as Terminus is one of the last remaining members that can contest the point, as that Ying goes down soon after.
Yeah, when they can't play as a unit, when they get picked off one by one, that's when the Parallax comp is going to fall off. They have to have people being staggered out, chain CC'd, and burned down, while the Terminus and a support, maybe even 2 ideally, can get someone at the same time. Dentic, same MO as before. Here he is flying in, Slop, none the wiser, and they can push now. The beam comes in, and again, CC chained with the team is how Parallax are going to win this game.
Yeah, the Inflame actually gets utilized, and a 1080 headshot forces Inara to maybe reconsider where she's positioned, but Prosper took down 3 by himself while Inara was trying to back off, and the healers were trying to make sure they can keep him alive. He's able to kill so many different targets when he was brought so low that entire time. I'm not sure why he's shooting the ground. Maybe it was a smiley face. I have no idea, but still, in this scenario, just overall unstoppable. In that situation, to be able to hold that ground against so many different targets, that is insanity.
That's the power of Predator 5 when there's not enough targets there to really do anything about it. Predator 5 again, this Victor finding the kill onto Freeze, but with a trade from Kronz onto Slop, he's been a playmaker for Celestial so far this game. Having him out of the picture is going to let the people up top play just a little safer.
Tried to hit the Terminus with a through time and space, but the stun on Corvus allows them to at least find an opening in orange. They're able to kill that Corvus and make sure that they are in a good enough position to try and force this fight. Nice wall as well from the, well, I would say nice wall if it didn't end up where their teammate end up being dead, but they end up winning that trade still, despite that. Prosper, Toot and Slop find 1 kill apiece, meaning that they are the ones in control of the situation. A nice grenade toss ends up with Freeze God being dead. A double kill forces out the reanimation from Terminus. Now they have to hold their ground on the side of Parallax.
And Terma's a little bit far away, so the cart rolled very close. That Corvusol doing quite a bit of damage. This could be a chance from Parallax if Dinta gets this trade, but Prosper barrel stuffs him. He goes down, and Outlander, under so much pressure on the point, these 3 heals have to do tons right now.
Yeah, the Dread Serpent ends up getting utilized. They're trying to dive into that Terminus to get the kill, and they do. Celestial Esports snatch that one away from Parallax Gaming in a 3-0 scenario.
Yeah, what a turnaround, I think, from Parallax in the middle, but it just wasn't enough to carry them through to the end. They started playing a little bit more disconnected. Anytime they actually got on a target together, were pocketing the same person, were damaging the same person, they were getting it. They were winning fights. They were actually making it work, but look at the end. Dintic goes into the back. None of the supports are healing him. None of the supports gave him anything before he goes in. He gets slain by Slop when he comes back. Outlander alone in the corner, out of line of sight of his healers. He goes down. He can't contest. They just had to be a little more together if they wanted to make a teamwork comp like triple support work.
You know, unfortunate for the Brazilian region. Parallax put up as best of a fight as they could, but Celestial's composition and their gameplay just proved to be a little bit too strong. Let's toss it back to the desk to close us out on this set.
Thank you, Fawn and Kresnik, and congratulations to Celestial Esports. They move on and try and get some revenge up against Just 69, and that's going to be next. But we want to know how you just watched that sweep happen, and you can let us know by tweeting at Paladins Pro and using the hashtag PPC. We got this one from Potzer01 on Twitter. This is how Potzer watches the PPC. Thank you so much for sending in your picture. Hope you enjoyed a great set there for Celestial Esports. And how could you not? Because they played very well in Gore. That was actually a pretty fun game to watch. The double support up against the triple support. And it turns out having a little bit more damage in your pocket is the difference maker, especially when that extra bit of damage is Prosper Logic on Victor, absolutely tearing it up once again.
I think being able to see, again, the sustain that comes through alongside the damage that like Slop and Prosper had was just more than the sustain you're having alongside the damage from like Freeze God. And Freeze God had a pretty good, I think, first 2 rounds even there. But unfortunately, those healing numbers being 36,000, 58,000, 58 for both of those other supports there on Parallax was nice, but you don't get to see the self-healing Prosper was able to do with his lifesteal. But 120,000, I was actually doing this earlier, across the game, if he's running 40%, which is the max for that lifesteal, that's 48,000 healing that he is getting back to himself throughout that game. He's almost done enough for himself as to what those healers were doing for their teams, right? And granted, sometimes he's going to be full health, so maybe it's not getting the full 48,000, but even if it goes down to like 30, 25, that's still 20,000 more healing than he should be getting, theoretically. You add that to the fact that Buck is able to keep himself alive as well. It just makes it so much more difficult to lock down these two individual targets. And they're damage champions on their own, so you know they're going to still be hitting hard, and that's exactly what they did throughout all of this. I mean, Prosper, you could take this one game and turn it into a Victor highlight, just montage for him.
He was in a great spot basically all game long, and I do think that FRZ God deserves some credit. Despite the ugly score line, he did put out over 100,000 damage of his own on Maldamba, but obviously not quite enough to get Parallax Gaming the victory, and ultimately the Brazilian region goes home a bit unhappy with their summer finals between Carnage Gaming and now Parallax Gaming. 12-0. Well, I guess 0-12 would be the better way to put it, because neither team able to find a victory at all here at the summer finals. So unfortunate for them and their region, but they'll be, I'm sure, be able to bounce back and have a better phase 2. And that brings us to a rematch of yesterday, where District 69 won 3-1 over Celestial Esports, the two European teams now facing off in this lower round 2.
And no matter what, you're not only getting a rematch here, but whoever wins this potentially finding themselves in a rematch territory as well. I guess Celestial, if they move forward, can maybe shake that up. But D69, they're trying to make this run. And I think for both of these regions, both NAEU going to be finding themselves in a 1 versus 2 matchup. It was a 3-1 yesterday when District 69 played up against Celestial. And then before that, at the end of the phase, Celestial were able to take it. I think those are the moments to maybe keep your mind on, is the fact that these guys have been trading back and forth. It has been more consistently across the year so far, going towards D69. But these rematches maybe have more weight to them because of these players maybe wanting not only bragging rights, but being able to prove you're number 1 in Europe or North America is pretty big right now.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break as we get ready for this rematch coming up right after this.